Welcome to my channel. Try to hear the latest story.
My phone exploded with violent buzzing at 3:17 in the morning, jolting me from deep sleep. Mom's voice shrieked through the speaker like a wounded animal. "Shelby, your brother Marcus is bleeding out in Dallas General Emergency Room. They're demanding $19,000 up front, or they'll discharge him to die on the street." Dad's gravelly voice seized the phone, bellowing about family loyalty and my selfishness for abandoning them in Austin. "We're completely broke after Ashley's wedding expenses last month. Send the money immediately, or live with his death on your conscience forever." I remembered years of identical manipulation tactics and fabricated crises. Without hesitation, I responded with ice-cold clarity, "Call your precious daughter instead," then disconnected the call and returned to peaceful slumber. Sunlight filtered through my apartment blinds as I awakened naturally at 7:30, feeling remarkably refreshed despite the pre-dawn interruption. My coffee maker gurgled to life while I reflected on the familiar pattern of manufactured emergencies that had plagued our family relationships for years. This wasn't my first encounter with their desperate financial schemes. 3 months earlier, Ashley's elaborate wedding had consumed $50,000 of borrowed money and family contributions. I'd been pressured into providing $15,000 through relentless guilt campaigns about family unity and supporting her dreams. Throughout the entire celebration, my parents praised Ashley as their responsible, successful daughter while treating me like a walking ATM machine. Every conversation centered on my software engineering salary and how fortunate the family was to have such a generous provider. Marcus had established his own reputation for financial catastrophes and substance abuse problems. 2 years ago, I'd lent him $8,000 for what he claimed were essential car repairs and rent payments. The money vanished immediately, likely feeding his gambling addiction or drug habits. When I requested repayment, Marcus became defensive and accused me of being materialistic and unsympathetic to his struggles. Our parents supported his victim narrative, suggesting I was being unreasonable for expecting accountability from someone fighting personal demons. Those experiences had taught me valuable lessons about establishing boundaries with manipulative relatives. I'd moved to Austin specifically to create distance from their constant financial demands and emotional blackmail tactics. My decision to refuse their latest crisis felt completely justified given their track record of deception and exploitation. At 8:45, while reviewing code for my morning project, my phone rang with an unfamiliar Dallas number. Detective Rodriguez from Dallas Police Department spoke in a professional, measured tone that immediately captured my attention. Marcus wasn't suffering in any hospital emergency room. Instead, he'd been arrested at 2:30 that morning for attempting to break into Richardson Pharmacy on Greenville Avenue. "Your brother was caught on security cameras trying to pry open the rear entrance," Detective Rodriguez explained. "When we apprehended him, he was carrying burglary tools and appeared to be under the influence of controlled substances. He's been booked on charges of attempted burglary, possession of illegal drugs, and carrying burglar tools." The detective's revelation hit me like a physical blow. My parents had fabricated the entire hospital emergency, while Marcus sat in a jail cell facing felony charges. Their frantic phone call had been pure theater designed to extract money through manufactured sympathy and false urgency. But Detective Rodriguez wasn't finished with his shocking revelations. Marcus had confessed during questioning that this marked the 4th time this year my family had orchestrated fake emergencies to scam money from me. The previous crises I'd believed and funded. Grandmother's funeral expenses, Dad's supposed heart surgery, Mom's cancer scare, had all been elaborate lies crafted specifically to manipulate my emotions and drain my bank account. "Your brother seemed to feel guilty about deceiving you," the detective continued. He provided details about how these schemes were planned and executed. I thought you deserved to know the truth about what's been happening to you." I gripped my coffee mug until my knuckles turned white, feeling a mixture of vindication and profound betrayal wash over me. The family I'd been desperately trying to help and support had been systematically defrauding me while laughing about my gullibility behind my back. Every dollar I'd sent in good faith had funded their lifestyle while they mocked my generosity and planned their next deception. The emotional impact was staggering. I'd questioned my own judgment countless times, wondering if I was being too harsh or unsympathetic when I hesitated to send money for their emergencies. Now I discovered that my instincts had been completely correct, and my compassion had been weaponized against me by the people who should have loved and protected me most. Determination replaced my initial shock as I decided to investigate the full scope of their deception. I needed to understand exactly how long they'd been lying to me and what other fabrications I'd fallen for over the years. My systematic approach to problem-solving, honed through years of software development, would serve me well in unraveling this web of family fraud. I started with grandmother's supposed funeral expenses from 18 months ago. I'd sent $8,000 after receiving tearful phone calls about how the funeral home was demanding payment before they could proceed with burial arrangements. My parents claimed they'd exhausted their savings and needed my help to give grandmother a dignified farewell. The funeral director at Peterson Memorial Services confirmed my worst suspicions. Grandmother had been cremated for exactly $1,200, not the elaborate burial ceremony my parents had described. There had been no expensive casket, no church service requiring rental fees, and no cemetery plot purchase. They'd pocketed nearly $7,000 of the money I'd sent for grandmother's non-existent funeral expenses. Next, I contacted Father's cardiologist office regarding his supposed heart surgery 6 months ago. I'd wired $6,000 for surgical costs and recovery expenses after Mom called sobbing about how insurance wouldn't cover the experimental procedure Dad needed to survive. The medical receptionist checked their records thoroughly before delivering another devastating revelation. Dad had never undergone any heart surgery. His only visit had been a routine annual checkup where his blood pressure was pronounced normal, and he received a clean bill of health. The final piece of evidence came from researching Mom's oncologist appointments. I'd sent $9,000 for cancer treatments after receiving heartbreaking updates about her chemotherapy sessions and medication costs. The oncology clinic had no record of my mother ever being a patient. She'd never been diagnosed with cancer, never received treatments, and never faced any medical crisis requiring financial assistance. My family had stolen over $20,000 from me through completely fabricated medical emergencies. Each lie had been crafted with sophisticated emotional manipulation, targeting my deepest fears about losing the people I loved. They'd exploited my compassion and family loyalty to fund their lifestyle, while I worked overtime to support what I believed were legitimate medical needs. I needed to understand who was orchestrating these elaborate schemes. My cousin Emma, who lived in their hometown and maintained relationships with all our relatives, agreed to meet me for lunch and share what she'd observed about our family dynamics over recent years. Emma's revelations were even more disturbing than I'd anticipated. Ashley had been the mastermind behind every fraudulent emergency, using her psychology degree to craft emotionally manipulative scenarios designed to bypass my rational thinking. She'd coached our parents on which emotional triggers would be most effective, timing their calls for maximum impact, and creating believable crisis narratives that would compel immediate financial response. Ashley bragged about how easy it was to manipulate you, Emma revealed with obvious discomfort. She said you were predictably generous and couldn't resist helping family members in crisis. She kept detailed records of how much money each fake emergency generated and planned future schemes based on what worked best. Emma showed me photographs she'd screenshots from Ashley's social media accounts, images that made my stomach turn with disgust and rage. Ashley and Marcus were pictured together counting cash and laughing with Ashley's caption reading, "Another successful family fundraiser, thanks to our generous brother." The photos had been posted the same day as Dad's fake heart surgery emergency, while I'd been worried sick about his survival and working extra hours to cover his medical expenses. But the most shocking discovery was Ashley's systematic documentation of their fraud schemes. Emma had seen Ashley's laptop screen during a family gathering, displaying a detailed spreadsheet titled Shelby Income Extraction Plan. The document contained projected targets for each fake crisis analysis of which emotional appeals generated the largest financial responses, and a timeline for future manufactured emergencies designed to maximize their income from my guilt and concern. Ashley had treated defrauding me like a business venture complete with quarterly goals, performance metrics, and strategic planning sessions. My love for my family had become their primary source of income, and they'd been optimizing their approach to emotional manipulation like any other profit center. The depth of their betrayal was breathtaking. I'd been funding their lifestyle while sacrificing my own financial security and peace of mind. Every dollar I'd sent had enabled them to avoid working legitimate jobs or taking responsibility for their choices. They'd built their entire financial strategy around exploiting my compassion and family loyalty. My drive to Dallas County Jail took 3 hours, providing ample time to process the magnitude of my family's deception. I'd requested a visitor meeting with Marcus, determined to hear his version of events and understand how deeply this conspiracy had penetrated our family relationships. The stark concrete walls and reinforced glass barriers created an appropriately grim atmosphere for the confrontation I'd been dreading yet needing for months. Marcus appeared haggard and defeated when he entered the visitor room, his usual cocky demeanor replaced by obvious shame and exhaustion. His hands trembled slightly as he picked up the phone, avoiding direct eye contact while mumbling half-hearted greetings. I wasted no time on pleasantries. "I know about the fake emergencies," I stated bluntly. "Detective Rodriguez told me you confessed to helping scam money from me multiple times this year. I want to hear everything directly from you." Initially, Marcus attempted his familiar defensive tactics, claiming he'd been forced into desperate situations by circumstances beyond his control. He insisted the hospital story had been a misunderstanding and suggested I was overreacting to what he characterized as family members asking for help during difficult times. My patience for his deflection tactics had been completely exhausted. I confronted him with specific evidence about grandmother's funeral costs, dad's non-existent heart surgery, and mom's fabricated cancer diagnosis. Each revelation stripped away another layer of his defensive posturing until he finally cracked under the weight of irrefutable facts. "Ashley promised all of us that we could make enough money from you to avoid working regular jobs," Marcus admitted through tears. "She said you made more than enough to support the whole family, and that you owed us for all the sacrifices our parents made raising us. She convinced us that taking money from you wasn't stealing because family members should share resources." The confession poured out in a torrent of guilt and self-justification. Ashley had begun recruiting family members for her fraud schemes immediately after graduating with her psychology degree 2 years ago. She'd presented detailed psychological profiles explaining how to manipulate my emotional responses, which phrases would trigger my protective instincts, and how to time their requests for maximum effectiveness. She held training sessions where she taught us exactly what to say. Marcus continued. She explained which words would make you feel guilty, how to create urgency, so you wouldn't have time to think rationally, and why medical emergencies worked better than other types of crises. She said your psychology was predictable and that we could generate steady income by following her manipulation strategies. But Marcus's revelations extended far beyond our immediate family. Ashley had been running similar scams on other relatives throughout our extended family network, targeting anyone with stable income or accumulated savings. Uncle Robert had lost his entire retirement account after Ashley convinced him that Marcus needed expensive drug rehabilitation treatment that insurance wouldn't cover. Cousin Sarah had borrowed against her home equity after being told the family owned a struggling business that needed immediate capital injection to avoid bankruptcy. Ashley created fake documents and websites to make the business look real, Marcus explained. She had business cards printed and even set up phone numbers that would be answered by people pretending to be employees. Sarah never suspected she was being scammed because everything looked completely legitimate. Marcus showed me text message screenshots that revealed Ashley's control tactics extended to intimidating family members who participated in her schemes. She'd threatened to expose embarrassing secrets about Marcus's addiction struggles and exclude him from family gatherings if he didn't cooperate with her fraud operations. She'd created an atmosphere of fear and false loyalty where family members felt trapped into participating in criminal activities. The most disturbing revelation concerned Ashley's expansion into insurance fraud. The fake medical emergencies weren't just designed to steal money directly from family members. Ashley had been filing fraudulent insurance claims using family members' identities, creating false medical histories that could be exploited for larger fraud schemes in the future. She said the small scams were just practice for bigger opportunities, Marcus revealed. She was planning to fake major accidents or illnesses that would generate hundreds of thousands of dollars in insurance payouts. The fake cancer diagnosis for Mom was supposed to establish a medical history that could be used later for a massive insurance fraud claim. I realized that my family hadn't just been stealing money from me. They'd been participating in a sophisticated criminal enterprise that could have destroyed multiple families' financial security and potentially landed all of them in federal prison. Ashley's psychology training had been weaponized to create a systematic approach to fraud that targeted the most vulnerable human emotions: love, fear, and family loyalty. The scope of their criminal activities was staggering. They'd stolen from elderly relatives, manipulated vulnerable family members into taking on debt for non-existent emergencies, and created fraudulent documentation that could be used for identity theft and insurance fraud. What had started as occasional requests for financial help had evolved into a full-scale criminal operation with Ashley as the criminal mastermind. My decision to drive to Houston and confront Ashley required careful planning and professional support. I'd hired private investigator Jake Torres that morning, a former FBI agent who specialized in financial fraud cases. His reputation for thorough documentation and legal expertise made him the perfect ally for exposing Ashley's criminal enterprise. Ashley's upscale apartment complex in River Oaks reflected the lifestyle she'd built using stolen money from family fraud schemes. The luxury amenities, professional landscaping, and high-end vehicles in the parking garage demonstrated how successfully she'd monetized her psychological manipulation skills. Every elegant detail had been purchased with money stolen from relatives who trusted and loved her. I rang her doorbell at 2:30 in the afternoon, accompanied by Jake, who carried professional recording equipment and legal documentation. Ashley opened the door with her usual confident smile, which faltered noticeably when she realized I wasn't alone and hadn't provided advance warning of my visit. "Shelby, what a surprise," she said with forced cheerfulness. "You should have called ahead. I wasn't expecting company today." "We need to talk about your family fundraising activities," I replied evenly. "This is Jake Torres, a private investigator who's been helping me understand some financial irregularities involving our relatives." Ashley's demeanor shifted immediately from welcoming to defensive. She attempted to control the conversation by inviting us inside and offering refreshments standard techniques for managing potentially hostile encounters. Her psychology training was evident in how she tried to create a comfortable atmosphere while positioning herself in the dominant seat and maintaining steady eye contact. "I'm not sure what you think you've discovered," Ashley said with practiced concern. "But I'm worried you're becoming paranoid about family members who love you. Maybe the stress of your job is affecting your judgment about normal family interactions. Her gaslighting attempts were sophisticated and calculated. She suggested I was being ungrateful for family support, reminded me of childhood memories when she'd helped me with homework and defended me against school bullies, and implied that my suspicions were symptoms of mental health problems that required professional attention. Jake Torres had remained silent during Ashley's manipulation attempts, allowing her to incriminate herself while he recorded everything. When she finished her emotional appeals, he opened his briefcase and began presenting comprehensive evidence of her criminal activities. Ms. Ashley, I've been investigating financial fraud affecting multiple members of your extended family, Jake announced in his professional tone. I have bank records, insurance documents, recorded conversations, and witness statements that document a systematic pattern of fraud orchestrated and executed by you over the past 2 years. Jake's evidence was overwhelming and meticulously organized. Bank records showed Ashley had collected over $120,000 from various family fraud schemes during the past 3 years. Insurance documents revealed fraudulent claims filed using family members' identities without their knowledge or consent. Recorded conversations captured Ashley coaching relatives on manipulation tactics and planning future fraud schemes. We have evidence that you convinced Uncle Robert to liquidate his retirement savings for a non-existent family emergency, Jake continued. You created fake medical bills and hospital documentation to support fraudulent insurance claims. You've been systematically targeting elderly and vulnerable family members for financial exploitation. Ashley's confident facade crumbled as Jake presented each piece of evidence. She attempted various damage control strategies, claiming the recordings were taken out of context, suggesting family members had misunderstood her intentions, and implying that she'd been trying to help coordinate legitimate family financial support. But Jake's most devastating revelation concerned Ashley's ultimate target, our 80-year-old grandfather who owned valuable property and maintained substantial retirement savings. Ashley had been slowly poisoning his relationships with other family members by spreading lies about their intentions and character. Your grandfather contacted my office last week, Jake revealed. Ashley had convinced him that Shelby was stealing from family members and planning to force him into a nursing home to gain control of his property. She'd already begun the process of having his will changed to make her the primary beneficiary. Ashley's manipulation of grandfather was particularly cruel because he suffered from mild cognitive decline that made him vulnerable to psychological manipulation. She'd isolated him from family members who might have questioned her claims, controlled his access to independent information, and systematically destroyed his trust in relatives who genuinely cared about his welfare. The private investigator's final bombshell concerned Ashley's employment situation. She'd been embezzling from her employer's client trust accounts, stealing over $200,000, while planning to frame her assistant Madison for the thefts. Madison was a single mother of 2 young children who had no knowledge of Ashley's criminal activities, but was about to be arrested for embezzlement she didn't commit. Madison's children are 4 and 6 years old, Jake explained. If she's convicted of felony embezzlement, she'll lose custody, and they'll enter the foster care system. Ashley has been setting her up as a patsy while preparing to disappear with the stolen money. Faced with irrefutable evidence of her extensive criminal activities, Ashley finally abandoned her manipulation tactics and revealed the psychological motivations behind her fraud schemes. She claimed she'd always felt overshadowed by me academically and professionally, resenting what she perceived as preferential treatment from our parents during childhood. You always got the praise for being smart and successful, she screamed through tears of rage and self-pity. I worked just as hard, but never received the same recognition. Taking money from you felt like collecting on debts our parents owed me for years of being ignored and undervalued. Her explanation revealed profound narcissistic entitlement and complete lack of empathy for her victims. She genuinely believed she deserved compensation for perceived childhood slights, justifying massive criminal fraud as righteous revenge against family members who'd failed to appreciate her adequately. Ashley's final threat demonstrated her willingness to escalate her criminal behavior when confronted with consequences. She threatened to spread lies about my personal life throughout our hometown and extended family network, claiming she possessed compromising information that would destroy my reputation and relationships. "I know things about you that would ruin your precious clean image," she hissed with venomous hatred. "If you try to have me arrested, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person you really are." Her threats revealed the depths of her criminal mindset. Even when caught red-handed with overwhelming evidence of fraud, embezzlement, and elder abuse, Ashley's primary concern was maintaining control through intimidation and manipulation, rather than accepting responsibility for her choices. Working with attorney Sarah Chen required organizing massive amounts of evidence documenting Ashley's criminal enterprise across multiple jurisdictions and victim categories. Sarah specialized in financial fraud cases and had extensive experience with family-based scam operations, making her perfectly qualified to navigate the complex legal challenges ahead. The evidence compilation process was both exhausting and enlightening. Bank fraud documentation showed Ashley's sophisticated understanding of financial systems and her ability to create convincing false documentation. She'd forged signatures on insurance claims, created fake medical bills using professional software, and established false business entities, complete with websites and phone systems to support her fraud narratives. Recorded conversations revealed Ashley's detailed knowledge of psychological manipulation techniques. She'd studied her victims' emotional vulnerabilities and crafted specific approaches designed to bypass their rational thinking. Her training sessions with family members resembled professional sales coaching, complete with scripts, objection handling techniques, and performance metrics. Financial records proved the systematic nature of her theft operations. Over 3 years, Ashley had stolen from 12 different family members using various fraud schemes. She'd targeted elderly relatives with fake medical emergencies, convinced younger family members to take on debt for non-existent business opportunities, and manipulated parents into believing their children needed expensive emergency assistance. Digital evidence from Ashley's computer and phone revealed the sophisticated planning behind her criminal activities. She maintained detailed spreadsheets tracking each victim's financial situation, emotional triggers, and optimal timing for fraud attempts. Her income extraction plans included quarterly goals, seasonal strategies, and contingency plans for managing suspicious relatives. As news of the fraud investigation spread throughout our extended family, reactions varied dramatically and revealed deep fractures in relationships I'd believed were solid and supportive. Uncle Robert felt devastated and embarrassed about losing his retirement savings, initially directing his anger toward me for exposing the truth, rather than focusing on Ashley's criminal behavior. "I trusted her completely," Uncle Robert admitted during a painful family meeting. "She seemed so professional and caring when she explained how Marcus needed expensive treatment. I never imagined my own niece would steal my retirement money and laugh about it afterward." Cousin Sarah entered financial counseling to address the debt Ashley's scams had created in her household. She'd borrowed $40,000 against her home equity based on Ashley's fabricated business emergency, putting her family's housing security at risk to help relatives who were actually stealing from her. My husband and I almost divorced over the financial stress. Sarah confessed through tears. "We argued constantly about money and couldn't understand why our budget never balanced properly. Now I discover we were paying for Ashley's luxury lifestyle while she manipulated our family loyalty against us. Grandfather felt betrayed and confused about Ashley's manipulation tactics, but expressed profound gratitude that I'd prevented her from stealing his inheritance and potentially forcing him into institutional care. His cognitive decline made him particularly vulnerable to psychological manipulation, and Ashley had been systematically isolating him from family members who might have questioned her claims. She told me you were planning to put me in a nursing home and steal my property, grandfather revealed, with obvious distress. She said the whole family was talking about how I was becoming a burden and needed to be removed from my house. I was terrified and felt completely alone. However, some family members sided with Ashley despite overwhelming evidence of her criminal behavior. Aunt Patricia and Cousin David claimed I was being vindictive and destroying family unity over what they characterized as misunderstandings and normal family financial support requests. Their denial and minimization of Ashley's crimes created additional stress and division within our already fractured extended family. Families help each other during difficult times, Aunt Patricia argued. You're being cruel and legalistic about situations that should be handled with love and forgiveness. Ashley made mistakes, but you're tearing our family apart instead of finding ways to heal and move forward together. Their response illustrated how effectively Ashley had manipulated family dynamics over several years. She'd cultivated relationships with relatives who viewed her as caring and generous, while portraying me as selfish and unsympathetic to family needs. Her psychological manipulation had been so thorough that some family members couldn't accept reality even when confronted with irrefutable evidence. My parents' response was particularly painful and revealing. Instead of acknowledging their participation in criminal fraud, they doubled down on victim narratives and claimed I was being vindictive over family misunderstandings. They refused to accept responsibility for their choices while demanding forgiveness and family reconciliation. We were just trying to help Ashley coordinate family support during emergencies, Mom insisted during a confrontational phone call. You're making this sound like some criminal conspiracy when we were just family members helping each other. You've become cold and suspicious about people who love you. Their denial and manipulation tactics proved they'd learned nothing from being exposed and faced no genuine remorse for their criminal behavior. They remained focused on avoiding consequences, rather than understanding the damage they'd caused to family relationships and individual victims' financial security. Private investigator Jake Torres's most shocking discovery concerned Ashley's embezzlement activities at her workplace. She'd been stealing from client trust accounts belonging to vulnerable families who'd hired her law firm to handle estate planning and disability benefits. Her theft had reached over $200,000, while she planned to frame her innocent assistant, Madison, for the crimes. Madison's situation was heartbreaking and infuriating. She was a hard-working single mother who'd taken the assistant position to provide stability for her 4- and 6-year-old children. Ashley had been systematically setting her up as a scapegoat by creating false documentation that implicated Madison in the embezzlement schemes. Madison works overtime every week and takes on extra responsibilities to support her kids, Jake explained. She has no idea that Ashley has been using her computer access and signature stamp to create fraudulent transactions. Ashley planned to disappear with the stolen money while Madison faced felony charges and lost custody of her children. This revelation transformed my perspective on the moral implications of exposing Ashley's crimes. Initially, I'd focused on recovering stolen money and protecting family members from future fraud. Now I realized that innocent people outside our family were facing catastrophic consequences from Ashley's criminal behavior. The community impact extended beyond individual victims. Investigation revealed Ashley had been targeting vulnerable families throughout our hometown, with charity scams stealing thousands of dollars meant for children's medical treatments and disaster relief. She'd established fake charitable organizations with professional websites and marketing materials to steal from families facing genuine emergencies. Ashley identified families dealing with real medical crises and offered to help coordinate fundraising efforts, Sarah Chen explained. She'd collect donations from community members and keep most of the money while providing minimal assistance to the families who actually needed help. Parents watching their children suffer believed help was coming while Ashley stole their donations. I faced a crucial decision about whether to focus solely on recovering money stolen from my family or expand my efforts to ensure justice for all of Ashley's victims. The moral choice was clear, even though it meant additional legal complexity and emotional stress. Innocent children and vulnerable families deserved protection from Ashley's criminal enterprise, regardless of whether they were related to me. Coordinating with law enforcement required precise timing and careful evidence management to ensure Ashley couldn't destroy documentation or flee before arrest. FBI agent Martinez specialized in interstate fraud cases and had been monitoring Ashley's activities since private investigator Jake Torres shared evidence of her multi-state criminal enterprise. The investigation revealed Ashley's crimes extended far beyond family fraud schemes. She'd been operating fake charities in 3 different states, embezzling from multiple law firms where she'd worked temporarily, and planning to establish a national network of psychology graduates who would run similar family manipulation schemes in their own communities. Ashley recruited other psychology students to target their own families using her manipulation techniques, Agent Martinez explained. She was building a franchise operation where each participant would pay her a percentage of their fraud income in exchange for training and ongoing support. She'd created a business model for weaponizing family relationships. The scope of her criminal ambitions was staggering. Ashley hadn't been content with stealing from our family. She'd been developing a systematic approach to psychological manipulation that could be replicated across thousands of families, nationwide, creating a criminal enterprise that would destroy countless relationships while generating millions of dollars in fraud income. We arranged a fake family meeting where Ashley believed she would finally convince grandfather to sign over his property and financial assets. She'd been pressuring him for weeks about the urgent need to protect his inheritance from supposedly greedy relatives who planned to exploit his declining mental capacity. Ashley arrived at grandfather's house with professionally prepared legal documents and a notary public she'd hired to make the property transfer appear legitimate. She'd coached grandfather extensively on why the transfer was necessary and which family members posed threats to his financial security. "Grandfather, we need to complete this paperwork today," Ashley urged with fake concern. "Shelby and the others are planning to have you declared incompetent so they can steal everything you've worked for. Once I'm managing your affairs, I can protect you from their schemes and make sure you're never forced into a nursing home." Her manipulation tactics were sophisticated and carefully planned. She'd brought financial documents showing how other elderly relatives had supposedly been exploited by family members, created fake news articles about elder abuse cases, and prepared emotional appeals designed to trigger grandfather's deepest fears about losing his independence and dignity. But instead of a confused elderly man ready to sign away his inheritance, Ashley encountered FBI agents who'd been recording her attempted fraud from multiple angles. The look of shock and betrayal on her face when she realized she'd been caught was both satisfying and disturbing. "Ashley Johnson, you're under arrest for federal wire fraud embezzlement, conspiracy to commit elder abuse, and operating fraudulent charitable organizations," Agent Martinez announced while displaying his credentials. "You have the right to remain silent and the right to have an attorney present during questioning." Ashley's immediate response revealed her true character under pressure. Instead of accepting responsibility for her criminal behavior, she attempted to blame everyone else for forcing her into desperate situations. She claimed Marcus had threatened her safety if she didn't participate in fraud schemes, insisted our parents had manipulated her into helping with family fundraising, and suggested I'd driven her to criminal behavior through years of emotional abandonment. None of this would have happened if Shelby had been a better brother and supported his family properly. Ashley screamed while being handcuffed. "I was just trying to help everyone survive while he lived his selfish life in Austin and ignored his responsibilities to the people who raised him." Her complete lack of remorse and continued manipulation attempts demonstrated the depth of her narcissistic personality disorder. Even when caught committing serious federal crimes with overwhelming evidence, Ashley remained focused on controlling narratives and avoiding accountability, rather than acknowledging the damage she'd caused to innocent victims. Evidence presented during Ashley's arrest revealed the full extent of her criminal planning. Over $300,000 in total fraud across multiple victims, including families who'd lost children's medical treatment money to her fake charity schemes. Forged legal documents intended to steal grandfather's inheritance and force him into institutional care against his will. The most horrifying discovery was evidence that Ashley had been researching untraceable poisons and methods for making elderly deaths appear natural. Her fraud schemes were escalating toward deadly violence, with grandfather as her primary target once she'd gained control of his financial assets and legal authority over his care decisions. Ashley had been gradually isolating your grandfather from medical supervision while researching substances that cause heart attacks in elderly patients, Agent Martinez revealed. She'd already begun reducing his access to prescription medications and was planning to make his death appear like natural causes related to his age and cognitive decline. Marcus's cooperation with law enforcement proved crucial for exposing Ashley's criminal network and protecting future victims. In exchange for a reduced sentence and genuine rehabilitation program placement, Marcus provided detailed testimony about Ashley's manipulation tactics, fraud schemes, and plans for expanding her criminal enterprise. Marcus showed genuine remorse for his participation and provided evidence that helped us prevent Ashley from stealing from additional families. Agent Martinez explained. His testimony was essential for understanding how she recruited family members and manipulated their emotions to enable criminal behavior. Madison's vindication brought emotional relief and restoration of justice for an innocent victim who'd been facing catastrophic consequences for crimes she didn't commit. Ashley's confession to embezzlement completely cleared Madison and led to her receiving compensation for the emotional distress and professional damage she'd suffered from being falsely accused. Madison's children get to keep their mother and their stable home environment, Sarah Chen noted with satisfaction. Ashley's criminal behavior could have destroyed an innocent family while she escaped with stolen money. Instead, justice prevailed and the real victim received protection. Community justice extended beyond individual victim compensation. Ashley's fake charity fraud network was completely dismantled, preventing future thefts from vulnerable families facing genuine medical emergencies and disasters. Legitimate charitable organizations in our hometown implemented stronger oversight procedures to prevent similar fraud schemes. Family relationships remained fractured between relatives who accepted reality about Ashley's crimes and those who continued defending her despite overwhelming evidence. Aunt Patricia and Cousin David maintained their support for Ashley while blaming me for destroying family unity through legal action. Some family members chose loyalty to a criminal over protection of innocent victims. I reflected sadly. Their response revealed character traits I'd never recognized before and helped me understand which relationships were worth preserving. Ashley's federal sentencing hearing provided closure and validation for the extensive investigation efforts that had exposed her criminal enterprise. Judge Williams sentenced her to 8 years in federal prison for fraud, embezzlement conspiracy to commit elder abuse and attempted murder planning. The sentence reflected the severity of her crimes and the number of innocent victims who'd suffered financial and emotional damage from her manipulation schemes. The defendant showed sophisticated criminal planning, complete lack of remorse, and escalating violence toward vulnerable victims, Judge Williams stated during sentencing. Her psychology training was weaponized to exploit family relationships and target elderly relatives for financial abuse. The court finds her crimes particularly heinous because she violated fundamental trust relationships that form the foundation of healthy family bonds. Our parents received probation sentences and community service requirements, but faced mandatory restitution payments to all fraud victims. Their cooperation with law enforcement had been minimal, and self-serving focused more on avoiding consequences than accepting responsibility for their criminal choices. Your parents showed limited remorse and continued trying to minimize their participation even when confronted with recorded evidence, Sarah Chen explained. The court considered their advanced age and health issues, but emphasized that they'd actively participated in criminal fraud and must face appropriate consequences. Financial recovery exceeded my expectations through aggressive asset seizure and insurance claims processing. Ashley's luxury apartment contents vehicle jewelry and bank accounts were liquidated to provide victim compensation. Insurance companies paid claims related to her fraudulent activities, and civil lawsuits against her employer's bonding company provided additional recovery funds. We recovered approximately 60% of the money stolen from family members, Sarah Chen reported. Given the sophisticated nature of Ashley's fraud schemes and her attempts to hide assets, this recovery rate represents excellent results for the victims involved. Marcus's genuine transformation provided the most hopeful outcome from our family's criminal fraud crisis. He completed drug rehabilitation successfully and found legitimate employment with a construction company that specialized in hiring workers with criminal backgrounds who demonstrated commitment to positive change. Marcus has maintained sobriety for 8 months and makes monthly restitution payments to fraud victims, his probation officer confirmed. He attends support group meetings regularly and has become a mentor for other individuals struggling with addiction and criminal behavior patterns. Marcus's relationship with our parents remained strained, but showed gradual improvement as he maintained accountability for his choices while establishing healthy boundaries about enabling behavior. He refused to participate in any manipulation schemes and insisted on honest communication about family problems and solutions. I realized that Ashley's fraud schemes were just another form of addiction for me, Marcus explained during our first genuine conversation in years. I was addicted to easy money and avoiding responsibility just like I'd been addicted to drugs and gambling. Recovery meant accepting that I'd been harming people I claimed to love. Grandfather's will and estate planning were updated with professional legal assistance that included safeguards against future manipulation attempts. He established a trust structure that prevented any individual family member from gaining excessive control over his assets while ensuring his care needs would be met according to his preferences. Grandfather feels much more secure now that he understands how Ashley was manipulating him, the estate attorney noted. He's re-established relationships with family members and has multiple people involved in overseeing his care to prevent future exploitation. Uncle Robert and cousin Sarah rebuilt their financial security with guidance from financial advisors who specialized in fraud recovery planning. Uncle Robert found part-time employment to supplement his reduced retirement income, while Sarah refinanced her home equity debt under more favorable terms. The financial recovery process taught our family valuable lessons about protecting ourselves from manipulation schemes, Uncle Robert reflected. We're all more cautious about emergency financial requests and verify information independently before providing assistance. Madison's success story provided deep satisfaction and validation for the decision to expose Ashley's crimes, despite family pressure to handle matters privately. Madison received a promotion at a different law firm that valued her integrity and offered excellent benefits for her children's education and health care. Madison's children are thriving in their stable environment, Jake Torres reported. Her daughter made honor roll this semester and her son joined the school soccer team. Ashley's criminal behavior could have destroyed their family, but justice prevailed, and they're building a bright future. Community impact extended beyond immediate victim compensation. Local charitable organizations implemented stronger oversight and verification procedures to prevent fraud schemes from targeting vulnerable families. Educational programs were established to help elderly residents recognize manipulation tactics and protect themselves from financial exploitation. Ashley's crimes led to positive changes that will protect many families from similar fraud schemes. Agent Martinez noted. Her criminal enterprise revealed weaknesses in our community support systems that have now been strengthened through better communication and oversight. Professional growth emerged from my experience dealing with complex fraud investigations and family trauma. I developed cybersecurity software specifically designed to help families protect themselves from financial manipulation and identity theft schemes. The software includes educational components about recognizing psychological manipulation tactics. Shelby's software has already helped prevent fraud schemes in other communities, Sarah Chen reported. His personal experience with family-based fraud provided insights that professional developers might not have recognized, making the protective software more effective for real-world applications. Personal healing required therapy and support groups for fraud victims, helping me process the betrayal trauma while learning to build healthier relationships based on mutual respect rather than family obligation. Therapy helped me understand the difference between genuine love and enabling destructive behavior. Learning to protect myself and others from manipulation wasn't cruel or selfish. I realized through therapy. Setting boundaries and demanding accountability were actually the most loving actions I could take for my family members and the innocent people they were harming. 6 months after Ashley's sentencing, I attended Marcus's 1-year sobriety celebration, where he publicly acknowledged the damage he'd caused and thanked me for choosing justice over enabling. His genuine transformation and commitment to making amends provided hope for rebuilding authentic family relationships based on honesty and mutual accountability. I'm grateful that Shelby stopped our criminal behavior before it escalated further, Marcus told the support group audience. His courage to seek justice probably saved grandfather's life and definitely protected innocent families from financial devastation. Real family love means protecting each other from harmful choices, not funding them. The life lesson that emerged from this painful experience centered on understanding the difference between genuine family loyalty and enabling destructive behavior. True love requires protecting innocent people from predators, even when those predators share your genetic material. Justice isn't revenge against family members. It's creating safety for vulnerable people who deserve protection. Family relationships built on manipulation and exploitation aren't worth preserving, I concluded after extensive reflection. Healthy family bonds require honesty, accountability, and mutual respect. When relatives choose criminal behavior over these fundamental values, protecting their victims becomes more important than maintaining false peace. My relationship with Marcus continues developing based on his demonstrated commitment to positive change and genuine accountability. Our conversations focus on building trust through consistent actions rather than relying on blood relationships to excuse harmful behavior. We're both committed to breaking generational patterns of manipulation and dysfunction. Marcus and I are creating the kind of family relationship we should have had all along. I reflected while watching him mentor younger men in his recovery program. It's based on respect, honesty, and supporting each other's growth, rather than enabling destructive choices. The final outcome exceeded my expectations for justice and healing. Innocent victims received protection and compensation. Criminal behavior was stopped before it escalated to deadly violence, and genuine family relationships emerged from the ashes of manipulation and fraud. Most importantly, vulnerable community members gained protection from future exploitation through improved oversight and education. Ashley's criminal enterprise taught our entire family and community valuable lessons about protecting ourselves from psychological manipulation while building relationships based on authentic love rather than fear and obligation. Justice prevailed. Innocent people were protected, and genuine healing became possible for everyone who chose accountability over enabling. The experience transformed my understanding of family loyalty from blind support to thoughtful protection of innocent people from harmful choices. Real family love means creating safety for vulnerable members, holding each other accountable for destructive behavior, and building relationships based on mutual respect rather than genetic obligation. Have you ever faced a situation where family members tried to manipulate your emotions for their own benefit? How did you handle the difficult balance between family loyalty and protecting yourself from harmful behavior? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video if it helped you think about family relationships differently. Subscribe for more stories about overcoming manipulation and building healthy boundaries. And please share this with anyone who might benefit from understanding these important life lessons. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it helps you recognize the difference between genuine family love and manipulative behavior designed to exploit your compassion.